Hey guys, ZenAku here again with a recap video of basically what went down at Dreamhack Winter. We're going to be talking about all the basically things that I learned, things that happened in the event, and basically how Sweden was in general. So basically, Steege, Astro Boy, and we flew in on the 25th of November, and basically when we got there, it was like raining almost every day, and it was cold and miserable. But that being said, I still think that Sweden is a really nice country, and we all really enjoyed it, even though there was quite a lot of funny moments that we had. Basically, from the straight away from the get-go, we started practicing versus other European players, and I specifically really started playing versus Vu. We had like quite a few practice games together, and there were some very specific things that I really learned from him, and basically how the other European players played. And what's really interesting when I look at this list of things that I'm about to say, it really feels like stuff that I already knew about, but when you're playing versus them, it just feels much more tighter in terms of how they address these particular things. So even the things that I have right now are the way that they would delay items in a way that every time when they would delay their item, they would be then fighting at your item to deal damage, and then by the time it's their item spawns, then you already are at a deficit and you can't really challenge, or it's more difficult to. They're always applying pressure wherever possible, so let's say if someone gets a frag on the first frag onto you, there isn't any situation where you can get something for free. So even in Australia, we do something very similar to that, where we'll always apply pressure even after the spawn, but sometimes, even Astro Boy or Steege, when we're just playing practice games, there'll be times where, there could be an opportunity to do that, but they just won't necessarily do it. And it creates bad habits because you start doing stuff that other players will just kill you when you shouldn't, get away from that. So this is like, for me, I like to think of it as the way they play is much more, how do I say, much more defined. So we play very similar to them, but they're just more efficient or better at making those choices. So yeah, nothing is for free. Denying items and fighting on them early, so always fighting on your item and then going to their item after. At the end of the round, they'll always basically run for like the last minute, because if you're in the last minute and a half, you have the defender's advantage, and it's really hard for them to for you to get the kill on them, especially when they're playing Nyx and other champions like that. And even that might sound a bit simple, but there have been times even when I played a series versus Steege recently for a qualifying position, and that exact scenario happened because every time we would play practice games, we'd always just play the rounds out. And then the one time where I needed to run, where it would have just won me the game, I didn't know how to do it because I didn't know how to execute that, and then I just lost. And that's something that I found that other professional players, they were always really on top of that. The next thing is combat skill and movement is paramount. So when I was playing Kilson, I used to always play Slash, and I didn't really play Nyx because I thought she was a bit weaker. But the speed that Kilson got with Nyx was just he would always move at almost at a very similar speed to how Slash can get at when you're gonna go through a couple strafe jumps, and the positions that he could get to meant that he can do more damage at different times, and that's something that I wasn't really used to because no one in Australia really plays that character to that degree. And then all of a sudden I'm getting shot from positions where I'm like, how the fuck can he even be in that place? But that's because, how do I say, he's just getting the most out of that character, and that's really important for, I think, a lot of things for moving forward and making sure that you're, again, that restrictive kind of behavior where they can only your opponent can only get away with so much when you utilize your champion the best. Something that I'm at least aware of, but when I watched other players play, they used to when they don't know where their opponent is, they'll do a lot of walking as well. And this is kind of, again, depending on if you walk for too long, then your opponent can kind of guesstimate where you are, and they can still attack you with speed. So that kind of it's a bit here or there with that statement, but especially on maps like Blood Covenant, where you can't necessarily the map is so long that it's really difficult to hear people, then walking is much more of a big deal. And yeah, like I was saying, these ideas are very simple, but the other players that were doing it were much more definitive in how they would do it. Excuse me. And just on top of that, something that even Astro Boy told me was, um, he specifically watches a lot of, even when he played Quake Live, he watched a lot of demos of Rafa playing, and the difference between, I would say, him and other people is that, at least in Australia, that we would always watch a lot of streams, but people that play on stream are just kind of just playing around at the games that don't really mean as much. And even though you'd see nice shots and you'd see good plays, the tournament games are where you get those experiences where all of a sudden, you realize at the end of the round, you can hide for that minute, and you can see what that looks like. And yeah, like I said, as simple as that sounds, it's really a complete different experience between watching someone stream and fuck around and watching someone do that in a tournament game. So that's something that I'll be definitely doing in the future. In the BYOC, I played FaZe in my first round, which I won 2-1, and that was kind of close as well. Next, I played Garpy, where I lost 2-0, and that was a little bit disappointing because in the first map it was 2-2 on Blood Covenant. The rounds were really close. I think even on that map it still went to the last champion. And in the very last round, Strinks is sitting right next to me, and he basically just starts really going off his nut, complaining about the game while he's just in a practice game versus Stage. And I thought that was really disappointing, but this is again another lesson that I learned from this tournament that I can do into future tournaments as well. Because I was in a bit of a situation where I could, let's say if I said to him, "Hey Strengths, I just need you to be quiet for a second." For me to do that would mean that I have to break concentration about me in this game, and then make it even fucking harder for me to win that round. Or I could get angry and then just get angry at him, and then all of a sudden, if I did that, maybe he would be quiet, but then the way I would play that game after, I kind of lose that grace that you would have when you play Quake when you're relaxed. Because when you're angry, you're doing much more rigid movements, and you don't have that finesse where you can really move in and out, outplaying your opponent. So I just basically decided to do nothing, and I don't know. It's hard to say if I would have won because if he wasn't raging or not, but I tell you what, it definitely fucking did not help, that's for sure. Then next I played, I think it was a Chilean player, and he wasn't so bad, but then I kind of got really frustrated because he got the rocket spawn every single time, and then after the way that I lost to Garpy, I just felt a little bit cheated in some way because I thought I could really do better than that, so I think the pride got to me a little bit. In the second round versus him, I basically kill his first character. He rushes me off the spawn with Slash, and I basically do just a perfect amount of damage, and the last rocket that would have killed him is a direct that does no damage, it just explodes in his face, and he just kills me with the gauntlet. And then I think at that point it's I don't know, I just got really frustrated and then just couldn't be bothered trying to try to outrail this guy with fucking heavy machine gun while he's camping at rockets. And then only afterwards, as soon as the game finished, Stage asked me, "Oh, is that a best of 3?" And then I realized it's a best of 1, and then I just basically threw away my chances, which I wouldn't have given up so easily if I had reminded myself of that. But that's something I think I just have to let go of my pride a little bit in those situations. Something I just remembered as well is that you look at players that are really, really good at this game, which is, players like Vu, Cypher, Noctis, Rafa. They all have very good combat skill in this game, and that's something that I'm going to be making a video about very soon, specifically about how I'll basically do one for every weapon, but at the moment I'm going to do one for rockets, and how the way that you would move on an item based on where they are, in that room, can sometimes change the whole dynamic. And I thought that I have an ability to meet other professional players at the same level in that degree, but the difference is that they were just more, how do I say, more opportunities for them to do that better than I could, because they'd obviously had practice more often and could see what that felt like. But then there were times where I just give them, we'd fight on an item, and I just give them not necessarily a free kill, but I just play into their hands because they were so good at just manipulating those mid-range fights, especially with rockets. So again, that's something that I'm going to be really adamant about looking, just practicing even just in a server about, you know, the way I'd move around with my character and stuff like that. Yeah, then afterwards we played Sacrifice, and that was a bit disappointing. Yeah, I think like we just had no practice as a team, didn't really even know like what we were doing really. But I think that, yeah, maybe next time when we have like more teams to practice first, or if we actually take it a bit more seriously, maybe we could go further with that, because yeah, I think we only had to beat like 2 teams, one of them would be the BYOC team and the American team, and I mean we had 2 Z in our group, and that would have been really difficult to win for sure. But I definitely think, you know, we could have made 2.5k each if we had just like got it a little bit together, but we just didn't have, you know, didn't happen. So and that's pretty much it. That's, I think, ultimately really all the main things I learned from that. Really just looking at, when I look at my little document, just looking at that combat skill point, because I think that was just so much to say about how people attack in this game, and really how control has a, you know, has a relevance, but it's really about taking very particular fights, and how movement is really the key to this game, I'd say. I'd just like to mention also one more thing, was that even just playing, how do I say, when I went to Sweden, I think it's interesting that you know, in your life you're always going to have people that really understand you the best, and you're always going to have these situations which are a little bit, you know, for example, when I'm friends with Astro Boy in Stage, but to a degree, like it's not exactly like your friends and family. And there were points where like the way that Stage would address me would kind of make me feel like as if I was a fucking retard or something. But I think that it's interesting that you look at those situations specifically, and you look at people's behavior, and you realize that it's very easy to think that when somebody behaves like that towards you, it's very easy to think that you're the person with the issue. But in actual fact, it's when people behave like that they feel inferior to you, that they have to degrade you. So for example, yeah, specifically the way that Stage would talk to me sometimes, it's interesting that when he was losing many like practice games versus other professional players, he would talk to me as if I was his equal. And then other opportunities where I would ask him something which would be mutually beneficial to both of us, it would be as if you know, it was so much of a hindrance for him to even answer the question. But the reason why he behaves like that is because anybody that is abundant or feels confident in their own abilities has no necessity to behave like that to someone. So in a way, I almost like it's like a paradox in that sense, because on surface level it looks like your value to that person is lesser, so you feel like you're doing you're less valued in this community. But in actual fact, the fact that he's doing that means that he believes in himself that I'm actually better than him. And it might sound like a bit too, how do I say, like a bit like thinking about too much about the situation, but it's those small things over a long period of time which can really fuck with your subconscious and how you play with these games. So I think that even after you know, you address these kinds of issues, it's still something you have to be really aware of, and you know, just take that with a grain of salt. And I can know that, you know, when I go on my future games with him, I can already feel like I have that mental edge versus Stage. And I think that with the things I've learned from this tournament, I think that there could be really good things for me in the next 6 months when tournaments come out. But yeah, alright guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because I'm trying to get this a lot bigger. And yeah, I just got partnered on Twitch thanks to Corvidae, so that's really awesome. And that's pretty much it, guys. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned, because I'm going to try and make another video today about specifics about how the rocket situation works and how speed is a big factor in that. Alright guys, see you later.